Washington event, which is a relatively minor CME. If we had one today, it would fry everything. We wouldn't be doing this interview. We probably wouldn't be here, or on the face of the planet, maybe.
So do you think that the destruction of Atlantis could be the result of a coronal mass ejection coming from the sun?
That's the best theory that we have to date. Robert Schoch's working on this, and it's based upon the very solid, un-woo-woo work of a plasma physicist named Anthony Perrott, who works at the for the Los Alamos, whatever it is, nuclear research center. And so the evidence is getting better and better for that. Like all of the evidence we've been talking about, it's complicated.
What do you think about the fact that this coronal mass ejection, this massive solar event, occurred exactly one half of the precession of the equinoxes ago in actual years?
It might just be coincidence. As far as I know, the people who are studying the sequence, CMEs, have not found a periodicity to it. It's not as though so far anyone can find that it happens every 12,000 years or every 36,000 years or anything like that. But that it does happen periodically, that seems to be well established. And Schoch is of the opinion, and it's an informed opinion, that we're sort of ready for one now. And if it happens, which doesn't mean, when he says that, it doesn't mean that it's tomorrow, and it doesn't even mean that it's next century, but somewhere in the centuries to come, the chances of one happening, he thinks, are pretty good.
Plato's Timaeus and Critias, of course, he mentions Atlantis in the books. But the conventional theory is, well, people who think that Atlantis existed, they're just basing it off of Plato. Do you believe that there's any other information besides Plato's original account that would support the idea of this global civilization?
Sure. I mean, there's our work, there's Schwaller's work, there's Laird Scranton's work, there's all the stuff that Graham has been working on. There's Gobekli Tepe that disappears, that they cover over deliberately. Now in Indonesia, there's Gunung Padang, which looks as though it's fantastically ancient. There's a ton of evidence out there. But the Plato myth itself is complicated. Most people, the Atlantis hunters, are always looking every month. Somebody says it's here, it's there, it's somewhere else. The Atlantis hunters are basically looking only at Plato. There's a very interesting book called The Pythagorean Plato by a musicologist and Sufi named Ernest G. McLean. I think he may still be alive. He'd be 10 years older or so than I am. That's old. In which he demonstrates pretty convincingly that as the story of Atlantis as told by Plato is actually a musical allegory designed to inform his musically initiated pupils of how harmony in music, representing the philosopher king, degenerates into tyranny by musical rules, actually. And initially, as I understand it, McLean didn't want to even hear about the Sphinx, which actually basically proves that there was an Atlantis, within inverted quotes. And somewhere along the line, I understand, I never got in touch with him. Weird, his book came out around the same time as The Serpent. Now I'm about to rewrite, upgrade my, not The Serpent, but The Traveler's Key, which is my guidebook to Egypt. And that will incorporate McLean's work, because I think what it is that Plato actually gets the story, the basic story of Atlantis, of cataclysm and destruction of civilization, from Solon, his grandfather, and then turns that into this musical allegory of how harmony becomes disharmony. So both are actually valid and are complementary rather than antithetical to each other.
Well, you mentioned something that's new and that most people don't know about, which is Gunung Padang.